Is this secure? I'm Michael. He's Curtis. Hi, Curtis.
Hi, please enter your chat request now.
And no intro music today. Why? I don't have a valid explanation for that. Just look, there's no intro music, okay? And you know what? I think it's a feature, not a bug, because I am so tired of podcasts that make you listen to 800 feet of intro music. Notice I measure music length and distance rather than time. That's the three-dimensional thinking that my mind engages in, which after years of psychedelic abuse, I mean, you will begin seeing the world in these strange ways. So I just want to put that out there. Take a look at our website, by the way, isthisSecure.com. There's not really a whole lot on there yet because, well, frankly, we need to do more shows. But I think once we get a little more content under our belt and get a little more established in what we're doing here, I think that'll start to change rather rapidly. Curtis, I have been using an iPhone for, I don't know, the last couple of years. I have a tendency to sort of bounce back and forth between Android and iOS. And I have my first Pixel device. This is the Pixel 7 Pro. And I have to say, I absolutely love it. The only thing I don't like about it, which honestly, having come from an iPhone, I'm not particularly surprised that I don't like this. The battery life is shite. The battery life is abysmal. I can tell you, I'm at work, I'm sitting in my office, and I'll just spend a few minutes wasting my employer's time that they're paying me for. Maybe 5-10 minutes, and maybe it's a little longer than that. Maybe I'm underestimating the amount of time I'm talking here, but I'll be starting from either a full charge or close to a full charge, and the next thing I know, I've blown through 5% on my battery. That never happened on a 13 Pro Max. I swear on a 13 Pro Max, an iPhone 13 Pro Max, I'm sure the 14 Pro Max is just as fantastic when it comes to battery life. You have to be trying to kill this thing. That's the only way that phone's going to die. You've got to be actively trying. You're like, hey, look, I mine Bitcoin on my phone while at work from 9 a.m. until 1 p.m.
That's not you. That's the app you downloaded that's doing that for you.
I like to end my day with zero battery and then do a full refresh overnight as it charges. It throws off my OCD if I don't end the day with 0% battery life. So that's why I do the Bitcoin mining during the day. I film 4K 60 frame per second video for 3 hours every evening after that. I swear to you, you probably could do all of that on a 13 or a 14 Pro Max and not have a thing to worry about. And I don't understand why this is inexcusable, the battery life on this phone. I think it is. We're talking about hardware made by Google that's now using a chipset that I guess technically is manufactured by Samsung, but it's entirely Google's brainchild, the Tensor chipset. SoC, system on a chip.
Yeah. Look at that. We are so cutting edge. We're talking about SoCs.
I'm going to start using the word platform here in a little while. You might hear me sprinkle the word ecosystem into this conversation. And when I refer to a piece of tech hardware, I'll refer to it as this guy. I won't, I'll anthropomorphize it. And
well, we're talking about machine learning algorithms here, so that makes sense.
Ugh. God, that's what kind of motivates me to do a tech show. It's just all the cliched bullcrap that I am exposed to anytime I dip my toe in the pool of tech coverage.
Mm-hmm. Well, one thing that I want to ask you about, so I just sent you a link too for something that's funny that you started talking about battery life and that difference, because there's actually I'm going to mention this and let's come back to it because I want to go another direction first, but there's a lawsuit out there from a former Facebook employee who is outing the fact that Facebook and other apps can actively kill your battery on purpose by running a process in the background, probably Bitcoin mining, like you said. But I want to come back to that in a moment and first ask you, are the pictures from the Pixel as amazing as they claim they are?
They really are. I mean, even the video, I thought that I would be impressed with the pictures on this relative to an iPhone, but maybe not so much the video. but I have been totally surprised in both regards. So if the only thing stopping you from going to Android is you're a little sketched about the availability of quality photography and quality video on an Android device, just get a Pixel and be done with it. And I'm getting Android updates once or twice a month. I mean, this is the iOS world on the Android side. It's just the battery life. That is the only hang up here. And as I say, Google's making the hardware, they're making the chipset, they make the software. Why is this an issue? I can't begin to wrap my head around it. And for whatever reason, my Google Assistant thinks that it needs to respond to that question I just posed. Why is this an issue?
Oh, because that's the reason your battery is dying, is there's no one out there tracking more data about you than Google.
Maybe that's what it comes down to. But at the same time, I use NextDNS, and I have essentially every peripheral Google packet that isn't directly related to me immediately and personally using the services that I use, whether it's Gmail or Google Search or YouTube or whatever other Google service. I mean, if it's not directly related to my ability to use those services, every packet's getting blocked at the router level and on the device level.
Yeah.
So I don't understand. I don't get where if that is in fact what's happening is all this Google tracking, because after all, you are the product. Right. I don't know how that would be continuing to go on if all of that. Well, I guess if in fact there is some infrastructure baked into the device that's constantly phoning home, which we know that's the case, but if it were a battery drain, even though I've blocked it at the DNS level, it would still be attempting to make the requests. So that alone would consume some power.
I would also assume that they've built in some kind of check system that if this fails, try this, try this, try this. But the other thing that I wonder about, joking about systems on chips and all that stuff, and they've really micromanaged every little ounce of performance out of these chips, whether it's a iPhone and all their stuff they're doing with the M1 and A chips, A16 or 17 Bionic. They're so massively optimized that something done wrong in the software gives you because it's all dependent on that software working together to get that optimization just right. It wouldn't surprise me if there's something software on the phone that's just overutilizing one of the aspects of your phone. Maybe it is the network, maybe it's trying to check to see signal, but it's something that they'll just, once they figure it out, they'll solve it in software, which is just, it's so funny to think that these devices now truly are computers. But the other thing that I'm wondering is with because they've gone all the way tilted towards, we're going to beat Apple by saying that we take the best photos, we optimize our algorithms that manage photos are better. Because if you've seen the advertisements where they say, we'll even fix the photos you've taken with other phones, I have to assume that your system is just constant. Your phone's operating system is just checking every image all the time to say, can I optimize this just in case somebody goes to look at it?
Well, if it is in fact doing that, there would be a certain cutoff where it doesn't need to cache all that information any longer. I mean, so that's why when I initially got the phone, I waited a good week before I started judging it on its battery prowess. I figured there's a lot of optimization taking place right now, a lot of personalization. It's learning my habits. There's a lot of, Curtis, this SoC does a lot of AI machine learning. So
it's been optimized algorithmically to give you the best experience 2 days after you bought it.
It really does do some amazing things. For instance, if I call a phone number that puts me in phone menu hell, I can just simply, instead of holding the phone up to my ear, I can look at a transcript, a preemptive transcript of what the phone menu options are going to be and just hit the one that I want right there by reading what the option is going to be.
I've never heard of this feature. So it detects from the phone call what system and what their menus might be.
I'm sorry.
Are you joking?
Nabila poked her head in the door here, and I don't know what she wants. She's just staring at me like part of my clothing is on fire or something.
She's looking at it like, are you doing a podcast again about SOCs?
So I think what it does is it knows from previous phone calls that people have placed what those phone menu options are going to be. And if you call a phone number and end up in phone menu stew, and it's something that it hasn't encountered before, then you'll see the transcription of the phone menu options as they occur. But if it's a well-known number that a lot of people call, you're just going to see 1, 2, 3, 4, and then next to each one is going to be written a transcript of what that would say if you actually sat and listened to it. There's all kinds of crazy little stuff like that on this device. Was there something you needed? Okay.
Well, get a mic and a headset. Let's get her on the podcast. Man, I'm getting so annoyed at Windows 11 on my computer.
Do you have anything to contribute when talking about technology? Is there anything you want to? Seriously. Do you want to add anything to this? We're talking about technology. Yes, in general. I mean, are you having any? Have you made any technology observations lately? Oh, yeah. Well, okay. So, yes, Nabila and I both use Soundcore's frames, the Soundcore frames that have speakers and microphones built into them. And
are you talking about glasses?
Yeah, the glasses and the
You're blowing my mind here.
The temple pieces on both sides detach from the frames. So, like, if I want them to be sunglasses today, I'll just pop on the sunglasses frames. If I want them to be prescription lenses tomorrow, I'll pop the prescription lenses on tomorrow, which I actually took one of the frames and had prescription lenses put on it. Connects over Bluetooth over your phone. So, I mean, like, when she's at work, she's just walking around listening to music or whatever, and nobody even knows. Yeah, you can talk, have conversations on it. I mean, it's a full-blown two-way Bluetooth audio device.
So are the speakers, are they like bone conducting?
The new one
speakers?
is the Ray-Ban where they have cameras. You can take like pictures and it goes straight to your phone. You can take videos, go straight to your phone.
But, you know, if you go walking up on somebody with that camera...
You can't see it. Can't see it.
Really?
Yeah, you can't see it.
Is it like
if you get the black ones, you can't see it.
What Curtis?
What was I going to say? I don't even remember what I said.
She was mentioning the camera.
Oh, I guess that you can't see it. That was
she says you can't see it, but I that's hard to believe.
If you get the black glasses, the black frame, you can't see the camera.
Why are you smiling at me like that?
Because you've been on camera.
You don't.
Well,
because those TikTok videos of you saying, "What? I don't know how to fix this. I have no idea what you're talking about."
Usually that's what I say to her when she asks me to fix something. I have no idea what to do with that. Right. Even though I secretly wrote a book on how to fix that item and self-published it on Amazon 4 years earlier. Like I'm not familiar with this product. I'm sorry. But
how to reset Notepad. That's for Windows. You wrote that book.
Look up the Soundcore frames. I think they're like they're like $150, I think. Well, I think they lowered the price to $150. I thought they did. They were $200. They might be $200 now. I don't know. Well, that's Ray-Ban though. Mm-hmm. That's an entirely different thing. And
Ray-Ban, you're getting way out of my price range.
Yeah, Ray-Ban makes their version. Soundcore makes their version, but Soundcore has kind of become the brand that you go to when you want a good product that performs well but doesn't cost too terribly much. Whether it's their
and remember, put in discount code "Is this secure?" Even though you'll get no money off of it, let them know that we want them to be sponsors.
Why are
so this is an Anchor company.
Yeah, actually, yes, okay. It is. And Anchor makes great chargers. They make they make a lot of fantastic products. Actually, they just kind of came out of nowhere. The only thing I can complain about is I bought a pair of their they make these speakers. It's like their equivalent of the JBL speakers, that you can set up at a pool party, and you can link multiple JBL speakers together. And you can do that with these as well. But I bought 2 of them a couple of years ago specifically for the purpose of making a stereo pair out of them, and they really perform poorly. They lose link with one another frequently. You've got to keep them really close together. Otherwise, they lose their ability to communicate with one another, which sucks in my view, because you buy 2 speakers like that to pair up. Part of the big fat advantage to this is I'm going to be able to take these 2 speakers with a separate stereo channel in each one and get some awesome stereo separation out of this. And it sort of negates that right out of the gate. It's pretty disappointing, but that's a rare swing and a miss from Anchor. I mean, pretty much everything they do is pretty awesome. So yes,
most companies get that wrong though, because I would like to get the Apple HomePod 2 that just recently came out and pair those in stereo, because they can do Dolby Atmos. But
can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Because I just lost my ability to hear you.
Oh, really?
I don't know why. I'm
talking.
Oh, I know why. I'm sorry.
Okay,
I,
right.
I hit the solo button on one of my channels. I'm sorry. Ladies and gentlemen in the listening audience, I do apologize. Carry on, Curtis.
I get it that this podcast is better when my voice is muted.
You know what? Like a lot of podcast hosts, yes, we could go back and we could edit this stuff out, and we'll fix it in post, as the kids say. But no, this was a real moment between Curtis and me. Don't you want to feel like we have that familial relationship between ourselves and you, the listener? I think you want that. So no, we're not editing anything in post. What were you saying?
Well, I argue that this is open source, which means you get what we give, and you'll like it. I'm looking through this. So like, you've blown my mind with this Soundcore. So I'm really annoyed at their website though, because I have some specific questions and I'm not seeing the answers to them, like on the speakers. So I'm just going to ask you instead. So I'm the customer. You're now the salesperson for Soundcore. So is it Bluetooth headphones that you wear with the glasses, or are the glasses bone conducting, or some other?
No, it's not bone conducting. It's actual speakers built into the glasses. The speakers are on the portion of the temple stems that go behind your ears. So as I'm wearing these, nobody can perceive that I'm not wearing a normal pair of glasses. The only time they become a little bit suspicious is when they'll see me maybe double tap on the right temple of my glasses because I want to pause what I'm listening to. Or they might see me sliding my finger forward across the right temple because I want to skip to the next song. Or they'll see me sliding my finger on the left temple because I'm adjusting the volume.
So if I want to get like inappropriately close to people's personal space, can they hear the speakers then?
If you got inappropriately close, yes. Now, there is a setting on these glasses that's accessible from within the Soundcore app that professes to be able to enable privacy mode. So apparently Soundcore thinks they're working some sort of algorithmic audio magic that somehow is going to prevent the sound coming out of a speaker from reaching someone who's standing around me. Well, I can tell you it essentially just makes the sound quieter is all it does. It's like...
That's all marketing.
It really is some bullcrap, isn't it? I mean, I'm sure there is something going on because the tonality of the audio does change a little bit. It loses a little bit of its dynamic range, and you can tell there is something being done, but I don't think there's really enough magic happening there to bill that as a separate feature. I mean, it literally lowers the volume by enough that I would be willing to wager, if I were simply to literally just lower the volume by that amount without doing any other modification to the audio, it probably would have the same net effect. This is a guess on my part. I haven't actually experimented with this, but it is an option. And so,
I mean, that's the difference between something that's reasonably priced and an expensive Bose or Apple device, and even the Google. headphones that do noise canceling, because that's actively listening to the sound outside and processing, and it's doing a lot more stuff with its SoC.
And AI learning.
I'm just going to keep using it. I mean, it's not going to end.
Listen, Curtis, this platform is really something. Let me tell you more. Now, there's no noise cancellation on these glasses. I don't think that would be technically possible, because if you think about it, if you got a pair of headphones that do noise canceling, if you got a pair of earbuds that do noise canceling, they already have the advantage of either completely covering your ears or being inserted into the ear canal, one of those two, which give the device right out of the gate an inherent advantage in the noise cancellation department over, say, a device that's in the form factor of a pair. There's another hot take phrase, form factor. We're going to throw that in a few times. Platform, machine learning, optimized. You know what? We got all the terms. We know how to do a tech podcast, okay?
If you want to hire us to just give you advice to make you feel better about whatever it is you're doing, we'll throw in some buzzwords and you'll feel better about what you did.
I don't think in the form factor of glasses that you would ever be able to have noise cancellation, because it would just have to be so aggressive. And even if it were that aggressive, it just wouldn't be able to account for the fact that your ears are entirely exposed to the open air. I don't know how it would ever overcome
so
that.
Let me ask you this. Would you even want noise canceling? Because
I don't ever use it. I never use it. Number one, I've never heard noise canceling that I felt wasn't modifying the audio in some way, particularly if I'm listening to music. Like, for instance, I use Apple Music, even though I'm on an Android device, which, by the way, Apple Music is vastly superior on Android compared to the version of Apple Music that you get on iOS.
I can't disagree.
I'll just put that out there right now.
I use it on my Android phone too. And my Android phone's old.
Crossfading, gapless playback, and a few other things as well. But why am I going to use Apple Music, which I primarily use to have access to Apple's library of high-res lossless audio? I mean, it's one thing to have lossless audio, but Apple has high-res lossless audio, which means that when you listen to music on Apple Music, if you have these features enabled, which is just simply a matter of going into the settings and ticking the enable next to high-res lossless, you are listening to audio that is encoded at a higher bit rate and a higher sample rate than CD audio. Literally, you have not had access to this version of these songs until now, because all you've ever been able to do is go out and buy CDs, unless maybe in the late 90s or the early 2000s you were one of the 0.0001% of people who caught on to the SACD or HDCD.
I'm still bitter about that because I had that.
Did you? Okay, so you're see why Curtis and I throw around terms like platform and ecosystem. Curtis owned, what was it called? SACD?
It was a Super Audio CD.
Okay, yeah. So, isn't that, what kind of branding is that? SACD.
Well, I just wanted to tell you, if you like high-res lossless audio, just wait till Apple releases high-res lossless audio Pro M3.
It's going to have a third Phantom channel.
Yes.
I remember I dug out these old records that my great-grandma had from the 1950s, and I put them on this old Zenith turntable, oak cabinet with the two giant speakers on each side.
I was just looking at one of those at a thrift store. I want one.
Get it. They're amazing. They sound fantastic. We've still got this thing, and it's about 60 years old now, and it sounds fantastic. But she had this record demonstrating the magic of stereo technology.
Yeah.
And there's a guy, we of course have the left channel, and now you're hearing the right channel. And now the Phantom Center channel. And like, okay, bitches, we see what you did here. You're just playing the same thing out of the left and right side and making me, ooh, hey, Judy, there's a speaker in the middle of this thing I didn't see. I did not know there's a third speaker in the middle of this. By God, this technology.
Yeah. I'm going to tell you though, man, when I got my Super Audio CD, so like I'm Sony snob when it comes to TVs and audio stuff, which I know that there's a whole level of audiophiles who laugh at Sony as your audio system, but
why?
Just because you can keep going up the.
Well, yeah, but
that
argument can be made against any piece of hardware.
Yeah, but audio systems are a special thing, though.
Well, the people who are into that stuff are a special thing.
Yeah. So I dipped my toes in it and started to go down the this is in the 90s.
You can say rabbit hole.
Audiophile. Yeah, well, rabbit hole. Yeah, so let's talk about that rabbit hole. So you get to the point where you're starting to have separate amplifiers and everything.
Did you get into ferrofluid?
No, see, that's the thing is like I had a friend who was ahead of me on it, and I got to a certain point and I realized this sounds good. Like I like the setup I'm at now. It's a little bit more expensive than I want to be spending, but I'm getting value out of it. But his system where he was going all the way, like where his record player is fluid level balanced and everything, I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm good. But I ended up, so because of that, Sony and Infinity became my two main brands. And Infinity, I feel like it's dropped a lot because I think now it's just a brand that's been purchased. It's not the same level of quality they had 20 years ago. But anyway, my Sony Super Audio CD setup, when I bought that and I got the first sample disc and it had a James Taylor
it was just
song.
samples?
Well, it was just sample songs to show you what the technology could do. So I bought I bought all the Super Audio CDs I could because there weren't that many, and that was one of them. So that's the first one I played.
Shit, I'll mow 3 extra yards this week.
Exactly.
You were still mowing yards at the age of 24.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I remember the first album of that I bought was Ryan Adams, his first record, but I listened to the sample disc first, which had a James Taylor. Oh, it was "Line 'Em Up," I think is the song. Is that the name of it?
A James Taylor song?
Nixon.
You cut out there for a little while. Line 'Em Up.
Oh, really?
You're saying that's the name of a James Taylor song?
I mean, it's something. Hold on, I got to double check.
Well, while you're looking that up, the point I was making was that if I'm going to go to the extent of using high-res audio from Apple Music, why would I want to muck that up with noise cancellation?
Right. Yeah, I agree. And that's right. That is the name of the song. But it was amazing.
Never heard it.
So, yeah, it's a good song. It's okay. It's not. Again, it was on a sample CD, so I didn't select it, but I did dislike it. But it was a live performance of it. And I sat down in the center of my room. This was the first system I ever had that came with a microphone that you have to place where you're optimal, where you feel you're going to be sitting most of the time, and it would optimize itself for that. And that Super Audio CD was just amazing. It was great. But now coming back down to earth and talking about noise canceling, you're basically making the same argument that I do. And the other part of it is, most of the time, I'm not listening to music. If I am listening to music, I use in-ear headphones, and I own Apple AirPods, but I purposely don't have the Pros because I don't want the noise canceling piece of it.
Is that all it gives you?
Yeah, I mean, I have AirPods too. When you go to the AirPod Pros, that's the difference between the AirPod 2 to. I think all of them come with noise canceling now because it's a buzz thing, and it's one of those deals where the technology is now cheap and easy for them because they built it, so they throw it in. It's just what level of noise canceling algorithm are they doing per device? But
have you seen this? Have you seen this movement of people out there though who are refusing to use that stuff and they're just going with the wired Apple earbuds?
Oh no, I haven't.
Yeah, this is a big thing going on out there, and one of the reasons is because of the absurdity of the fact that you still, to my knowledge, even with the newest AirPods, you cannot listen to high-res lossless on those devices, on those earbuds.
I don't know that for a fact, but it makes sense to me because that's still a network transmission it's got to do between devices, and those headphones don't have a lot of storage to be like if you're streaming or listening directly to music you have on your phone, it still has to be transferred to the devices to pick it up. So it makes sense that they'd be doing something to lower the quality. So I mean, I could see that.
This opens.
I just don't get the idea of checking out of my surroundings.
Yeah, that's another
past
thing.
the
I
college.
do want to have that level of, if I get swatted, I need to know that this has happened, particularly as a well-known host of a financially lucrative tech podcast. If I got swatted up in this bitch, I've got to know what's happening in my environment.
You need to get the stuff out quick. I get it.
Something that a lot of people don't ever think about either is the fact that, okay, let's say I go out and I buy a nice pair of Anchor Soundcore headphones that support Qualcomm aptX lossless Bluetooth, which is a thing, which is supported by a pair of Anchor headphones that I have. Well, if I decide to use those headphones with an iPhone, the iPhone does not support any high-res Bluetooth codec at all, other than to other Apple devices.
Yeah, proprietary, right.
So if you get this nice set of headphones made by whoever that support lossless Bluetooth audio, and you think you're just about to take these home and be immersed in an oral experience that has yet to be rivaled, well, think again if you have an iPhone, because you're going to get SBA, which is, or is it SBC? I think it's SBA, Standard Bluetooth Audio, which is a codec that goes all the way back to like 2007, and it's lossy. You can hear it. It sounds about like an MP3 encoded at maybe 128 or 160 kilobits per second. It's not impressive, and it is a tip of the hat to the fact that the Bluetooth protocol, there's another term we're going to inject into the show frequently, protocol.
Inject, too.
Inject as well. I use the word inject throughout the week. I mean, it's...
yeah, you're interjecting that regularly?
As much as possible. It's you wouldn't believe how many phone numbers I've got on my phone because of that. Anyway,
I believe it.
The Bluetooth protocol originally was not intended for audio to begin with. This whole notion of streaming audio across through a codec across a Bluetooth connection, that's something that's been shoehorned into the Bluetooth protocol. And now
it was a nice to have feature that
it's a nice to have feature, but it was never really intended for that. And that's why only now are we starting to see wireless audio devices that are supporting these high res and lossless formats. Even high res isn't, I don't think, still possible on any of these Bluetooth devices, but you can at least get lossless. The aptX codec, the Qualcomm aptX codec, will at least allow you the pleasure of lossless audio. But high res, forget it. You're going to have to connect a wire. That's why when I'm driving around in my car, whether I'm using an iPhone or an Android device, when I'm listening to Apple Music, wire, I do not connect to Bluetooth. I got a great stereo system in my car. I've got those rims that spin independently of the tires.
I was hoping you did. Do they have LEDs in them too?
And the paint on my car changes tone. At the top, it's blue, and then it fades into a neon yellow, and then it fades into a green at the bottom. And I have a spoiler, and I have chrome tips on my exhaust pipes. No, I made all of that up.
Tell me it's got switches.
I drive a Buick. Okay?
Hidden switches.
It's a nice Buick, but I drive a Buick. But it sounds great. It's got a great... I mean, this is a high-end car. It's got a great sound system. Why do I want to... Yet, despite the fact that it's got a... Yes, why am I going to connect that over Bluetooth? You connect a wire, crank it up. Oh, boy. It's delicious.
So to translate this to another piece of technology, like the same idea with transferring audio from your phone to whatever device you're going to be listening from. I was recently talking to some coworkers and telling them about back in the day before broadband internet was a thing. And I had a series of customers that were all around the geographic area, like basically the Midwest, but mainly Indiana, Ohio, Michigan, Kentucky, Illinois, but sometimes outside that circle. And we would have like software updates and patches we need to do to software. And we literally talked about the transfer rate of either me or one of my coworkers putting it on a hard drive and driving it to that location, even if it was hours away. Because back in the day before broadband internet, I could transfer, at that point, we're talking about like 500 megabytes of data on a spinning hard drive. I could transfer that in a couple hours in a car much quicker than I could do it over a dial-up connection. So that's an extreme example of what you're still getting with Bluetooth. Like you have this device that has a lossless, I guess, go with that high-res lossless audio. I don't even know how big those files would be for one 4-minute song. But
about
it's
150 megabytes, somewhere in there.
Is it? So transferring that over Bluetooth still, it's not efficient at all.
No. You know, I still do
get
that.
Get in your car, drive 3 hours, and listen to that song is what I'm telling you.
If I still do that, if I'm going to a customer, I put everything on 1.44 megabyte floppies, a stack of them.
Oh, no, wait. You're doing it wrong. Do 5 1/4 floppies. That's the only way to go.
Those are truly floppy. And
yes.
Wait, 5 1/4 megabyte? Is that what came out after the 1.44? Or is this?
Well, is it 1.44 the hard disk
yes,
floppy?
And prior to that was the
760,
768K. Prior to that, so I'll stack them up. They're in sequence. They're numbered. I'll drive to where I'm going, and then when I get there and find out they don't have a floppy disk drive, I'll order one and then wait with the customer a couple of days for it to be delivered. I'm dedicated.
Oh man, So one time I had a scenario where a guy who worked with me, I had to send him on an install. So we were in Indiana. He had to go to, I believe it was Detroit, Michigan, or somewhere up in Michigan. And the location was supposed to have some specific hardware that they had ordered ahead of time, and we had confirmed that they had it. But it's a customer, so of course they didn't actually do that. They just said they did. So he drives up there, multiple hour trip to get there. They didn't have this system to connect the drive he needed. I think it was like a SCSI drive or something, and they didn't have they didn't have the ISA SCSI card that we needed at that time. So he had to stay until they had to order it, and it had to come in overnight. But then there was a snowstorm, so he had to spend like 3 days there because that's how long it took to get to it.
Was that time all billable?
Oh, yeah. Oh, well, that's the thing. I'm trying to remember. I think I tried to bill it all, but they had their argument about they misunderstood something, if my memory is right. So I'm sure there was some credit given on it, but the tech, like, he didn't plan to be gone for 4 days, to do that. It was supposed to be I'm going to be driving longer than the actual work I'm going to be doing kind of job. And instead, he got to hang out at a restaurant for multiple days. We actually got stuck in a hotel because of a snowstorm for a lot. But
you guys were like, we won't credit this all back to you, but we will send you a $20 gift certificate to the local Cracker Barrel, which you can enjoy as a company.
But only during happy hour.
So
does Cracker Barrel have a happy hour?
I wouldn't know, Curtis. I would not know.
I just know they have those rocking chairs out front, and that's the end of the knowledge I have of that location.
So TikTok is getting banned in various places, but it's my understanding, you had mentioned this prior to the show, it's my understanding that it's only able to be banned constitutionally. It can, and thus far it only has been banned on government devices within certain state governments. Correct?
Yeah, this is a scenario where legislation hasn't caught up to technology, but the people who speak for creating legislation, in my opinion, are starting to use words ahead of their ability to actually execute on it. Because there's what I've been hearing is that it's state by state. So there's some states who are already going out and saying that they're going to ban this, but they're going to be pretty limited. Like the closest example to it is gambling. So when you do gambling, let's say you have like MGM Grand or any of the other sports books out there, they have to do geolocation, which of course you can get around with VPN software, but they have to geolocate to say, okay, in this region, I have to turn off the gambling portion of it. So I assume these lawmakers think they're going to make TikTok implement that too for them, so that the lawmakers don't have to figure out how to make it work. Because it's easy to say devices that are under our security policy, you just can't install this application. And that actually is on the edge of being reasonable, because government devices, there's a lot of apps they shouldn't have Facebook on them. You go down the list of different applications that shouldn't be on a government device that could have anything critical or important. I'd say police officers, EMTs, any of them, like, you shouldn't have Google Assistants running on them if you want to be really strict about it. But their goal is, from my understanding, this is the first step towards trying to limit TikTok. Since they've never gotten the federal ban that they want on it, they're going with the idea of start at the states and work your way up. But do you have a different understanding of it?
No, that is my understanding of it. But what gets me is every politician I hear talking about TikTok and the scourge that it is, they never talk about the really important aspect. They go on and on and on about security concerns and TikTok having access to your data, which I've seen people go over the terms of service of TikTok with a fine-tooth comb, and I'm not able to extract anything from that suggests TikTok is collecting any data of people that every other service doesn't collect, whether it's Instagram or Facebook or YouTube or pick your favorite service. They're all collecting all of this information. I saw a guy on some show and he starts listing off the various things that TikTok retains about you. And the first thing he mentioned was your IP address. And he looked at the camera like, I just got him with that one. That's going to get him right there. I'm like, there's not a website in this world that you can visit that's not logging your IP address on an Apache server or something. I mean, every connection you make is being logged in some way. There's not a single thing you're doing when it comes to sending packets of data between yourself and someone else, or vice versa, that doesn't result in your IP address being logged. There's nothing interesting about that. There's nothing out of the ordinary about that. And thinking that that is a threat just illustrates that you're listening to someone who has an inherent lack of understanding of how tech works, how things work, how networking operates. They just don't get it. I think the real problem with TikTok has nothing to do with data safety. It's entirely about the content. It's about the mind control aspect of it. And it really is truly
it's about
mind
the moderation
control.
Of the moderation of content, like the way, not moderation, I guess, but the presentation of content.
It's by the selectivity of what's going to be shown to your 11-year-old daughter. I don't want my daughter being shown content that encourages gender dysphoria, for example. Sorry, I don't. And I don't care what amount of social change occurs that's supposed to make me feel okay with that. I don't want my children being shown that stuff. I don't want them being exposed to that. I want them to not think about their sexuality, at least not any more so than a kid in the 1970s would have, okay? I'm not a prude. I just want children to be allowed to be children, and the content that children are being shown on TikTok, I believe, is designed to hobble them and to essentially hobble an entire generation of Americans into people who have to go to a therapist who charges $400 per hour so that they can answer the phone at work, because otherwise they find it too anxiety-inducing. If you go look at the content that people are being shown on,
for this episode.
If you go look at the content people are being shown on TikTok in China, which in China, I don't believe the product is called TikTok. It's called something else entirely, but it's all under the banner.
Everything about it is, the way they're.
It's all under the banner of the same company, but there's being shown children doing science experiments, children playing an instrument proficiently, children singing really well, children excelling in math and science and various STEM fields.
There's another level to it. There is. in China, what they're being presented is another set of data or another set of videos too. Like I'm sure what you're saying is a piece of it, but there's also a very heavy anti-Western philosophy that's being promoted at the same time too there, where on our side they're promoting a chaotic point of view that makes us fight internally between ourselves, and over there it's teaching them that we're idiots, and that ends up
We are.
playing out correctly because of what we argue about. Yes, but one
We
thing
really
I want to
are.
do is I want to come back though to when you mentioned the IP, because one analogy I like to make for people that don't really know, haven't really cared, but you're listening to this podcast and you need to share this with other people. When it comes to security and the internet, you need to be thinking about whatever your favorite, and if you don't have a favorite, then just listen to me. The movie about naval exercises with submarines. So whether it's like The Hunt for Red October or whatever movie it might have been.
Crimson
Or a
Tide.
story, Crimson Tide, there you go. See, I knew I'd leave something out that would work.
That's the one I
so
like.
basically, all of us, when we are on any electronic device that's connected to the internet, we are submarines sending out a signal. And there's all these listening devices. So basically it's sonar. Your IP address is your sonar ping. That's the reason why they use some of this terminology of ping. Like you ping out to a server and that responds back to you, and now you're sending packets back and forth. So when you're underwater and you're a submarine and you have listening devices and you have boats, everything else, there's all these different technologies that are used to pick up the signal of your submarine. You cannot hide. Even when you see the trope of the submarine goes dark, so everyone's trying to be quiet and not make a sound, you're still making sounds. You're still able to be found in that scenario. It's just you've made yourself a needle in a haystack. But when you connect to a service, so rather than pick on TikTok, I'll pick on Facebook, which is it's an easy target too, but it could be any of these services. It could be an image, like a service that you send your image to and they give you back a prettier version like Snapchat, any of these things. What you did there is you just directed your signal. Like you're directing a signal to that system that's out there looking to pick up all the signals it can anyway, but you just made what I would call a promise that I want you to return data back to me, so I'm going to give you my data. So in the submarine example, there's no hiding for you anymore because you're picking places to send your signal to, and everyone else is also trying to watch and hear it too. You'll hear things like SSL and secure servers, things like that. That's just trying to scramble up that signal to encrypt it to where maybe people aren't going to be able to decode it and see what the signal I sent to Facebook or Snapchat or TikTok is. But that is not foolproof. There's a whole nother conversation we can get into about that. But everyone still knows you sent a signal because it's all accessible. Now, because of the encryption piece of it, let's say on Facebook, now I know you're sitting out there in the ocean. I know exactly where you are. I know what kind of boat. I can pick up all kinds of information about that signal that you wanted me to find out. But there's also other, what is called metadata about that connection that gives me a lot more information about you than you realize. Now, leaving the submarine example completely and going to the technology, there's also the fact that you've installed this app in your device. So at that point, not only am I sending out a signal saying, hey, I see you over there and I want you to send me a response back to do something. Now I've actually put the connection device into my phone with the app, and they can go to it and say anytime, there's all this data I want from you. And you don't even know, like you're not even a contributor to it. So that's one of the pieces that makes it so dangerous to me, is that there's the part that I know I'm giving up because I'm not the customer, I'm the product. And then there's at the point that I'm not actively engaged in that service, what else are they using of my data? And so in the submarine example, our phones and our computers and all these little devices we connect, all the smart devices around your home, there's these devices that are just pinging out your signal to the world all the time. I mean, like we've talked in past old podcasts use your Wi-Fi to echolocation, point out how many people are in your house, where they are, whether they have weapons, before they go and bust into a house. I mean, that's how, like, all this data, all these extra little pieces of things we're sending out there in the world. We don't think about the fact that we're technically in an adversarial environment. So the more you send out a signal, the less power you have, because you just broadcast it. Like, to go totally into the science / sci-fi realm, I would talk about like the dark forest example of whether or not there's intelligent life in the world. Are you familiar with the dark forest?
No.
Okay, so one of the theories about why, like, staying out of like science fiction / conspiracy, just scientifically trying to look at the question of why haven't we found intelligent life anywhere else in the world. The dark forest theory is that the universe is a dangerous forest or jungle. So anytime, and so there's predator and prey, just like we understand in our own world when it comes to our environment. So extending that out to the universe. And so if it's a hunter-prey situation, every time a civilization gets smart enough to send out a signal to the world, so think about us when we start broadcasting radio and TV signals a little over 100 years ago. At the moment you start to do that, you're now sending out a signal that all the predators in your region of your galaxy or solar system can pick up, and they're predators. Like, only predators survive, and they're going to come destroy you. And so you're not going to find intelligent life, because anyone who's smart enough to survive is probably a predator, and they're just waiting to pick up the next signal so they can go destroy it. Like, this analogy fits like the human condition pretty well. We understand it. That's the same thing that's happening with our technology, that the only way to not get picked up into this system of tracking that we've built that's supposed to be getting us, like, the original promise is better marketing and getting me being able to get the things I want when I want them, is like the promise of all this tracking gives. But the reality is we're in an adversarial situation. We've been the prey. The predators are every app we've ever installed. And TikTok is one of them. Like, they aren't any different than the US-based companies that have done this. They're just not homegrown. That's my diatribe for the moment, and my analogy of naval tactics and why we are screwed.
Well, Curtis, I ain't worried about none of this because I use Incognito mode.
Right.
That's the second time I've used that joke on one of our podcasts. I think the previous time might have been like 7 years ago. I do have to recycle material.
Well, it's only fair. We only get so many bytes to work with, so...
Well, I would just like to hear a politician prattle on about the content being shown on TikTok and get over this whole your data. I mean, I'm really not worried about the Chinese Communist Party looking into my YouTube viewing habits. I don't care, and I don't think they care either. Now, if I suddenly become somebody who is wildly popular online and I have a platform and I happen to be anti-Chinese, then I might expect that the Chinese government's going to be interested in me and perhaps looking to find some sort of compromising information they could use against me. I was listening to Scott Adams, I think it was this morning, and he was recalling a strange text message he got from someone he doesn't know. And it was obviously someone who was trying to social engineer him into engaging in conversation. And this person made it known that she was a young Chinese student. And I think that because Scott Adams is very anti-China, and it wouldn't surprise me a bit if the Chinese intelligence agencies decided that what they would do is text him and try to get him hooked into a conversation with what he thinks is some hot young Chinese piece and maybe get some compromising information off of him. But you know what's lacking in that scenario? TikTok. What's lacking there is any piece of software created by anyone having anything to do with China or the Chinese Communist Party. It was just a simple attempt at social engineering, Scott. And he's too smart to fall for it, and so he didn't. But it's...
Well, that's the problem. He didn't fall for the obvious one. It's the fact that the real danger is always more subtle. It's not like that one checked. So how I'm trying to think how I process what I'm trying to say here. So that is a very obvious example that could just as much be someone messing with him as it is an operative.
Absolutely. He doesn't know, though.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately the response is the same for him. Like, it shouldn't matter whether it's someone's trolling me or it's a Chinese operative. You still respond the same way in it. But what I'm saying is that when it is like really, like if China sees a threat in something he's doing or saying or the platform he's on, it's going to be well organized and it's not going to be obvious it's coming from a Chinese operative. Like it's I guess I'll use the word inside job is what they'll do in a way that's a couple steps away from them, and it'll be harder to recognize. So like I always assume when it's that obvious, that's just someone messing. Like it's either someone trolling or it's some kind of bot type system that there's no real human intelligence behind the goal of what they're doing. It's just let me cast a wide net and see what I can get. So it's not nearly as intentional as. But
who knows? I found it was interesting though. And I think about that situation that he was describing, and it's like that could so easily have been something from the Chinese intel community, and it had nothing to do with what everybody is spewing about right now. TikTok. And I mean, I don't let my kids use TikTok, and it's got nothing to do with the fact that it's from China. I mean, you know how much electronic equipment is in my house right now that's manufactured in China with highly complex chipsets installed that could be doing anything that I would have no idea of whatsoever.
Oh yeah, I mean, like so my oldest daughter has it, and she had it back the old version of it called Musical.ly. Like what I don't get is why they changed the name when they did that, because Musical.ly was the app where you just like it started the early days of it. From my understanding, it was just this thing where you lip sync to a song and dance to it and share them, and it didn't go that next layer deep. Like something changed to where they switched to TikTok and the app just suddenly became scarier to everybody else. I think a big part of it is the fact that it does seem to target children as its audience, but there's lots of adults who are using it too. And that's another just really quick weird thing about all of these things, whether it's Twitch, Twitter, TikTok, I don't care. Like when there's an area that kids are using on the internet, it is so weird when adults try to get in there and try to be part of that community, whether they're like streaming, because like I'll play Minecraft sometimes, I'll play it with my son, but I'm not going out and trying to make Minecraft videos for kids to get them to follow me. You know what I mean? That's in like.
See,
on TikTok,
I heard that you had like a huge channel and you're like sending free lollipops and stuff to people who and subscribe. I heard that it was a whole thing with a van. Yeah, it was really involved.
Yeah, I mean, isn't that like when you see that, it just makes you stop. Like maybe that person was innocent, but most of the time they're not. It's super creepy. Like again, like I don't think you go to the playground when you don't have your kids with you and just go swing on the swing set and go down the slide by yourself. Like that's their sandbox. Let them play in it. And how about you help protect other adults from going into it too, so kids can be kids?
What I do is I tell my kids they have to stay home because that's what I'm leaving to go do.
It's like going to Disney World. Like kids, you got to stay home. I got 2 tickets to Disney World. I'm taking the guy next door because he bought me beer last week. I'm sorry, I can't take you. I can't pick a favorite between either of you because I like him better.
Needless to say, they do find it upsetting. Okay, that's going to do it. You've been listening to Is This Secure? I'm Michael. He's Curtis. And it has certainly been a pleasure being with you. And we're going to be back again Sunday with a nice, new, fresh show. We're going to try and make Wednesday, Sunday our regular thing. So you can just anticipate that, if you will. And Curtis, do you have any parting words?
Those days.
Okay.
I was just going to say we'll ping you next time.
Okay. Bye.